me start the session by asking you this question. What comes to mind? What comes to your mind when you hear the words transformative technology? So let us try doing this via Mentimeter. So let me just share. So there, you can go to menti.com and use the code 58844152 to send in your answers, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. So there, so far you have one response. So let us wait for the others. So here we have changes, jam, innovation, AI, or artificial intelligence, divergent, evolution, developing, betterment, innovation, responsive, opportunity, evolutionary, proactive, purposeful, life-changing, very diverse answers, but transform, enhancement, exponential, mental health, digital, digitalization, new tech, visionary, education, mobility, validating. So there we see that a lot of you answered AI, innovation, digitalization, new tech, development. Okay, so I think we have a pretty good number of responses. So let me go. Tech that can facilitate, purposeful. Okay, so now let me go back. So a lot of your responses are, I think all of them are correct. Um, and we'll cover most of them here in this session. Um, but yeah, transformative technology can be defined differently, but in the context of this talk, let us use the definition of Matthew Lynch of the techadvocate.org. So according to him, transformative technology is a term used to describe any tool or system that creates significant social, economic, or cultural change. So these technologies have the potential to revolutionize the way we live, work, and interact with one another. So examples of transformative technologies include what we commonly use today, the internet, smartphones, social media, and also artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and blockchain technology. Also, the concept of transformative technology is not new, as there have been several innovations throughout history, from the invention of the wheel to the Industrial Revolution and so on. But today, technological innovations and advancements are being developed at a more rapid rate. So also, transformative technology has the following characteristics. So one, these have the potential to create profound changes in how we live our life. Um, as you also mentioned Peter a while ago. This can involve changes in the way we communicate, access information, or make decisions. So for example, the internet has transformed the way we communicate with one another, and social media has also changed the way we interact and share information. Second, these often disrupt existing industries or systems, so they can create new markets, change business models, or replace old technologies or processes. So for instance, ride-sharing platforms like Uber and Grab, which we commonly use today, have disrupted the traditional taxi industry, while blockchain technology has the potential to revolutionize finance and banking. Third, transformative technologies often have a global reach, so they can break down geographic barriers, connecting people across borders and cultures. This can lead to new opportunities for collaboration and innovation. So for example, virtual reality technology can facilitate immersive cross-cultural experiences that were previously impossible to achieve. Lastly, transformative technologies frequently require a shift in mindset or behavior. So they can challenge existing norms and require individuals or societies to adapt new ways of thinking or doing things. So for example, the widespread adoption of renewable energy technologies like solar panels, windmills, etc., will require a shift away from fossil fuels and a change in how energy is produced and consumed. The potential benefits of transformative technologies are great. However, they can also bring about negative impact on society, like their effect on the disruption of traditional employment and their role on the spread of misinformation, among others. So there's also this underlying fear of AI replacing human jobs. Thus, ethical, social, and economic implications must be considered also in connection with transformative technology. So for this talk, I will focus on transformative technologies in the context of library and information services. So specifically, I will discuss first an overview of libraries and technology. Second, digitalization and digital transformation. Third, digitalization tools for enhancing library services, especially AI-driven cataloging, virtual libraries, and augmented reality. Fourth, I'm also going to share some of our digitalization efforts in my organization, the Filipino Heritage Library. And lastly, some challenges, solutions, and future. So first, let's talk about libraries and technology. Libraries and technology have always gone hand in hand, from clay tablets and papyrus scrolls found in the ancient temples to the vast digital collections that we have today. So with the onset of the fifth industrial revolution, which is characterized by human-machine collaboration and intelligent systems, we envision libraries to once again transform. AI-powered tools will personalize learning experiences, collect, catalog, and curate information with unmatched and untiring precision, and break down language barriers. Libraries won't just house information, they'll become dynamic portals where cutting-edge technology empowers education, create vibrant online communities, and propels nations towards a brighter future. Libraries must continue to evolve by embracing transformative technology to become go-to portals for education, of the community, and nation building. By leveraging AI and using digital tools, libraries can offer more efficient and accessible cataloging systems, personalized learning experiences, remote access to comprehensive digital resources, and foster online engagement. Technology enables libraries to break down borders and bridge the physical divide, creating vibrant online communities by encouraging the sharing of knowledge that promotes community development and nation building. Ultimately, tech-enabled libraries become catalysts for the socioeconomic progress of the nation by nurturing citizens equipped with the skills and information needed to thrive in the digital age. So here's an image that I actually generated using an AI tool. So I used the Canva app that is mostly used for graphic design. So there I just inputted the keywords libraries and technology, and it generated this image. So here you can see a long-term timeline of technology by Max Roser from ourworldindata.org, entitled From the Distant Past to Our Lifetime and Into the Distant Future. So you may notice in this graphic that the current pace at which technology is set to change, the current pace at which technology is set to change in the future is so rapid compared to how it has evolved in the past. So and we can also see here that human level artificial intelligence is predicted in our life. Now let us look back on technology's impact on libraries and how they evolved together over time. Writing, paper, and books have evolved from clay tablets in 3000 BCE, wherein the first libraries used clay tablets for storing information, acting as the earliest form of library catalog. And then in 400 BCE, there was the papyrus scrolls um, that the Egyptian libraries used for storing written materials. These scrolls were likely organized by topic or author. Then in 1450, there was the printing press, which revolutionized book production, leading to the development of modern libraries with a wider variety of printed material. In 1876, there was the telephone, which was still used for reference services, allowing librarians to answer patron inquiries remotely. And in 1945, there was the microfilm, which is used to store large collections of books and documents in a compact format, saving space and preserving materials. Then in 1960, we had the computer, which is used for catalogs, library catalogs, circulation systems, and online databases, enabling faster and more sophisticated information retrieval. In the 1990s, the internet was launched, which provides access to online resources and catalogs, revolutionizing library services by expanding access beyond physical library walls. Then in the 2000s, there were the e-readers, which allowed libraries to lend e-books and audiobooks, offering users a convenient way to access digital content. In 2010s, there were mobile apps, which provided library access and services through smartphones and tablets, increasing accessibility and user convenience. And Currently, in the 2020s, we have artificial intelligence or AI, uh, which is commonly used for chatbots, virtual assistants, and personalized recommendations in libraries, enhancing user experience and streamlining information access. So today we are on our way to the fifth industrial revolution. Industrial revolutions are times of rapid change achieved through innovation. So we have come a long way since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution that brought about the introduction of machines and technology that led to mass production and significant advancements in manufacturing, transportation, and communication, to the development of computers in the 20th century that allowed for unheard of computational power and automation, leading to rapid advancements in fields such as science, medicine, and finance, and eventually the birth of the internet, which allowed rapid communication and information sharing on a global scale, transforming the way we live and work. And also the birth of the smartphones, which enabled unprecedented convenience and connectivity, putting the power of a computer in the palm of our hands. Now we see the integration of digital, physical, and biological systems, genetic engineering, the Internet of Things, and advanced human-machine interfaces in Industry 4.0 or Web 4.0. Most especially, artificial intelligence or AI has now come to the forefront of society, and in many ways, it mimics human intelligence, and presumably, AI will continue to be more human-like and will continue to revolutionize industries such as healthcare, finance, and transportation, enabling greater efficiency and accuracy. So while the fourth industrial revolution, or 4IR, is focused on predominantly achieving efficiencies using technology, 5IR focuses on the harmonious acceptance of human-machine collaborations for greater societal well-being. As libraries will continue to play a crucial role in providing access to information and promoting lifelong learning, librarians must remain responsive to the ever-changing needs of users to remain relevant. So we must continue learning about emerging technologies and innovations and integrate them to our library services. Generally, we can integrate transformative technologies with our library services and workflows through digitalization and digital transformation. So, digitalization refers to the use of digital technologies to change business processes and projects. So it may involve skilling employees to use new software platforms designed to help launch products faster or improve business operations. This is not to be confused with digitization, which is the process of converting or translating analog information and data into digital form. Digitization is a process under digitalization which has a wider scope. On the other hand, digital transformation, also known by the acronym DX or DT, is defined as a process by which companies embed technologies across their business to drive fundamental change. While digital transformation includes digitalization efforts, it goes beyond the project level and affects the entire organization. So it focuses on reshaping the entire organization. So this chart from channelinsider.com distinguishes digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Digital transformation helps companies keep pace with changes in their business environment and remain competitive. So in this table, the differences among digitalization, and digital transformation are shown more clearly. So in terms of scope, digitization deals with data conversion from analog to digital, while digitalization involves improving processes with digital solutions. And for digital transformation, it it is leveraging tech for a total organizational overhaul. And on the impact level, digitization covers task level change, For digitalization, it impacts operations and processes, while for digital transformation, it is a strategic shift. And for the end goal, digitization aims to make data more accessible, digitalization targets operational efficiency, and digital transformation aims at complete organizational transformation. So more on digital transformation. This diagram from the Harvard Business Review shows the 5 components that are needed to execute an organization's digital transformation. First is people, consumers, employees, clients. Next is data, digital record of the people, and evaluate the results of here number 5. Third is insights or meaningful interpretations of data. Fourth is action, changes in behaviors, decisions, and strategy based on insight. And fifth is the result, or quantifying the ROI, return on investment, impact, and utility of number 4. So in between, you will see how digital technologies and processes are embedded, including digitization and the use of technology, data science for analysis, and their connection to process, people, and culture, and coming up with new ways of doing things to enhance operations. A digital transformation roadmap is useful in any organization's journey. So it is a defined process that explains how an organization can embrace digital technology to achieve its business goals and ultimately become a more sustainable, future-proof business. This graphic from HelloSign illustrates 10 steps to help guide an organization's digital transformation. So step 1 is to secure full support from senior management. The top management and leadership team set the tone of the organization, and it is helpful if they commit to digital transformation and signal that this is a priority. This will then make every employee or team member feel that their role is important to the overall goals or journey of the organization. Step 2 is to set ambitious goals and targets to take you above and beyond your competition or past performance and achieve your maximum potential. Third is to allocate funding. Of course, everything has a cost and it's not going to be cheap, but things of lasting value rarely are cheap. So it is an investment in technology, future-proofing, having the right people and other resources to help you continue to transform in the years to come. Step 4 is to start with lighthouse projects. So you can begin and gain early support by starting with low-risk but high-reward lighthouse projects or small-scale but big-picture projects. Step 5 is to appoint a launch team, wherein ideally you engage experts in digital design, customer data analytics, and digital marketing to help transform your organization. Step 6 is to introduce new workflows. This involves agile workflows, which focuses on continuously delivering small pieces of work and getting feedback as quickly as possible. To enact digital change quickly but should not alienate the existing staff. Step 7 is to grow your culture. It is helpful if workers have a digital mindset that values speed and collaboration with a passion for testing, learning, and even failing on the fast-paced road to growth. Collecting feedback will also help ensure that what you're doing is something your customers actually want. Step 8 is snowball. Each initiative moving forward should build upon the success of the last to maximize your resources and your forward momentum. Focus on specific areas of digital transformation where you think it will have the most impact. Once your efforts begin snowballing, it's time to push past the targets you set earlier to compound on the success and bankroll future initiatives. Step 9 is to build your capability. This involves modernizing your core platforms and perhaps even building upon them to introduce new business capabilities to bring digital transformation to a new level of scale in your organization. And lastly, step 10, adopt agile methodology. If there's one constant in life, especially in the digital age, it is change. So embrace change. Teams must be flexible and cross-functional. Organizations will need to adopt the agile principle. Now, let us explore some of the latest digitalization tools and technologies that we can utilize to help enhance our library service. So foremost among these is artificial intelligence or AI, which we hear about a lot nowadays. The Oxford English Dictionary defines it as the capacity of computers or other machines to exhibit or simulate intelligent behavior and refers to the field of study concerned with this. It also refers to the software used to perform tasks or produce output previously thought to require human intelligence, like visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and understanding human language, especially by using machine learning to extrapolate from large collections of data. Here you can see the different branches and types of metadata at a glance. So we have machine learning, and under that, there's deep learning, supervised machine learning, and unsupervised. There is natural language processing, or NLP, which covers content extraction, classification, machine translation, question answering, and text generation. There are expert systems, vision, image recognition, machine vision, speech, speech to text, and text to speech, planning, and robotics. So I am not an IT expert, so I would not delve into the technical details of AI, but I will focus more on its practical use. AI is now actually part of our day-to-day lives. Our phones and devices are now called smart. Smartphones, smart TV, and other smart appliances and devices that enable us to use AI-powered personal assistants, such as Siri, Google Assistant, and Amazon Alexa, that can perform a wide range of tasks, from setting reminders and messages to playing music and controlling smart home devices. Smartwatches that can monitor vital signs, track steps and activity levels, can even predict potential health issues. Digital maps like Google Maps and Waze aid our travel by using AI to monitor traffic and provide real-time traffic conditions. Google search and social media sites also utilize AI. If you will notice, it seems like our Facebook and Instagram feeds and ads predict what we think or want to buy. This is because they use AI to examine user preferences and behavior, recommend related content, and customize the user experience. Same with streaming platforms like Netflix and e-commerce sites like Lazada and Shopee that give content or product recommendations through AI algorithms based on search queries, browsing histories, and other information. Businesses also use AI-powered virtual assistants and chatbots for customer service and communication. Tools like Grammarly and Spellcheck can automatically activate while drafting an email. Digital security measures like Face ID, email spam filters, antivirus software, and bank transaction alerts also use AI. So now, how does AI impact libraries? With the widespread availability and use of AI and the advantages that it brings, libraries can maximize AI tools, but should also be aware of ethical considerations. So according to the statement released by the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, or IFLA, in October 2020, libraries can educate users about AI and help them thrive in a society which uses AI more extensively. Libraries can integrate AI and machine learning technologies into everyday work. And libraries can support high-quality, ethical AI research. Now, let us look at some of the latest available digitalization tools and technologies that we can integrate into our work and library services. So we will be focusing on the following major areas: AI-driven library resources, user management, remote access and online services, and virtual and augmented reality. So first, let us talk about how to bring about AI-driven library resources and its application to the following aspects of library work and services: cataloging and metadata management, content digitization and accessibility, and collection management. So for librarians, one of the most meticulous and time-consuming work is cataloging or metadata management. Traditionally, we encode data and refer to cataloging and classification tools to describe, classify, or index our library materials. So copy cataloging is widely practiced and made convenient with C3950 and XML. The process can be enhanced further by AI. Automated indexing through AI tools like machine learning algorithms that can analyze text and assign metadata automatically is especially helpful for providing descriptive information of library material. Machine learning, or ML, is a branch of AI, as well as sound and image recognition technologies, are already being used to analyze digital collections, identify topics, and assign metadata. Machine learning technologies can also enhance classification schemes to improve search and recall precision. So some examples of related tools are Google's AI, called Gemini, formerly Bard, Microsoft's Copilot, formerly Bing Chat Enterprise, IBM Watson, OCLC WorldShare for OCLC subscribers, which offers AI-driven classification, subject heading recommendations, and automated metadata enrichment, and of course, the most popular ChatGPT, among others. There are several tools out there, so I can only tackle it. So these tools are mostly free or come with a free trial with advanced features made available for premium accounts. Benefits include improving discoverability through consistency and quality in metadata indexing and improved metadata accuracy. AI can also identify concepts and assign corresponding keywords, making it easier for users to find relevant literature. AI automation in cataloging processes can also save time and resources for librarians. So by automating repetitive tasks, librarians can focus on more complex and value-added activities such as curating collections and providing specialized services to patrons. So here's a quick demo of an AI tool called Microsoft Azure AI Services and how it can be used to provide metadata or descriptive information for a digital image. So this was done through a free trial account. So here you can upload an image from your collection. So here we used an image of Jose Rizal. There, it came up with these descriptions: a man in a suit, a close-up of a man. So here we selected another image. So it provided several descriptions a woman wearing a mask sitting at the table with a laptop, a person using a laptop, a woman wearing a face mask, a close-up of a green chair, a person wearing a colorful cloth face mask, a person using a laptop, a woman wearing a colorful fabric face mask, a close-up of a laptop on a table, a woman wearing a face mask, a woman wearing a face mask sitting at the table with a laptop. So these can be good starting points when we provide metadata or descriptive information. But since AI's knowledge is still limited, so we still have to review and check for accuracy and improve on what AI provides us with. So here, um, in this article, you can learn more about the implications of AI on library cataloging. So here's an article entitled From Chat GPT to Cat GPT by Richard Rustovich. So in summary, the article says that ChatGPT can generate accurate records that conform to multiple metadata standards like RDA and Dublin Core. And it has the potential to significantly streamline the cataloging process in libraries by generating accurate and consistent records for a diverse range of materials. But it should be used as an auxiliary tool in conjunction with human cataloging efforts to ensure the highest level of accuracy and impartiality. We should also be cautious about bias and privacy issues. So we should still review and edit ChatGPT's output. So here it said it can also extract essential metadata, including title, author, publisher, publication date, subject headings, and other descriptive elements with precision. Although while ChatGPT has the potential to streamline aspects of the cataloging process, it is not a complete replacement for human catalogers. The records generated by ChatGPT can serve as effective starting points, but they still contain discrepancies when compared to professional catalogers' records. By applying a careful and considered approach to its use, librarians and other information professionals can leverage ChatGPT to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of cataloging process. So here are some tasks or experiments that you can try using ChatGPT for cataloging purposes. So you can try creating a marked record for specific book or title. Try to classify a book by generating a Library of Congress or Dewey Decimal Call number. Assign thesaurus terms or subject heading. Create a summary for a book or article. And also check text for errors or grammar. So let us try to generate a catalog record using ChatGPT. So let me just change my screen. So let's click. So these are the sample prompts in ChatGPT. And these are ChatGPT features. So this one is free to use, and there's no need to create an account unless you want more premium features that you can pay for. So we just click start now. And there you can just input your message here or the prompt or instructions that you want chat GPT. So anyone who wants to suggest a title of a book um, that you can generate for a mark record, you can type in the chat box Harry Potter. Okay. So let's ask ChatGPT is a mark record of the book Harry Potter. So ChatGPT is responding here. It's generating a mark record. You can see the author, title, publication, physical description. This record is a sample and not for an actual specific edition, because there are many editions of this book. So there, came up with the field. Um, so it also provided subject heading, fantasy fiction. So there, you can see it's not as complete as you think it should be. So you should still review and check the output of ChatGPT so we can come up with a more accurate and comprehensive record. So you want to suggest another book title or a different task? Uh, Try to ask for an LC call number. So here it gave the call number PV7 R79835JR. So with a breakdown, PV7, this part of the classification typically denotes works of fiction written for children and young adults. R79835. This section is specific to the author's cover number, J.K. Rowling, and Har is the part of the first three letters of the title, Harry. So it even explains that this number helps libraries categorize and shelve the book appropriately based on its subject matter and intended audience. So, yeah. Anything else that you want to try? So this time let's ask for subject heading. There. So it even explains that LCSH are controlled vocabulary terms used to describe the content of book. So it suggested some relevant subject headings for the book Harry Potter, such as wizard fiction, magic fiction, ghost fiction, England fiction, fantasy fiction, which I think are pretty accurate. So these subject headings capture key themes and elements of the Harry Potter series, such as wizards, magic, schools, specifically Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, the setting in England, and the genre of fantasy fiction. So these terms help libraries and readers find books with similar content. So I'm just looking at the chat. Yes, for those libraries with no access to standard cataloging tools. So before we still have these very thick volumes of LC, um, or Dewey Decimal that are multiple volumes and are expensive to buy. And they are also constantly being updated, so we need to be to get newer editions. So this is helpful in that case. It is a good starting point. And so I think this is Antonio is suggesting to use the book Paper Towns by John Green. So let's try. So there, generated the mark code, which you can simply copy and input to your system. But of course, you still have to review and edit them accordingly. So here it also says that adjustments may be necessary depending on the edition-specific ISBN, pagination, and any other additional notes or physical details, especially for titles with different editions. Um, so let's see if there are other suggestions. Airport architecture. Architecture by this. So there, it suggested the following subject heading: airport terminal, design and construction, airport architecture, architecture modern 21st century, architectural design, public architecture. Okay, and a last sample. Um, there's a question. Can this also generate a content for Mark 505 for a title? Okay, let's try these last two titles. So there it also comes to the subject heading. So it also says the source of the cataloging data. Now this, I think I have used used up my free uh messages. So now asking me to sign up or log in. So there, you can try it on your own. You just go to chatgpt.com, and so let me go back. So there, you've seen how ChatGPT is able to generate cataloging information for different library books or titles or materials. So it's just one of the available tools. So there are several others. Um, Next, another area to utilize AI is content digitization and accessibility. So the traditional process for digitization or conversion of an analog to digital format, especially for print documents, is through manual scanning that generates an image file. An AI enhancement is the use of OCR or optical character recognition, wherein scanned or digital documents are converted to editable and searchable data. AI-powered tools can also generate text from image, audio, and video files for transcribing. Some example tools include Google Cloud Vision API, Abby Fine Reader, Amazon Transcribe, Google Speech to Text, or Google Docs for typing. You can actually try this one later using Google Docs. Just uh, go to voice typing. So you can dictate any words and it will generate text for you. So this is especially helpful when you have to come up with meeting minutes or related information. And then there's also a counterpart in Microsoft, which is Microsoft Dictate, which is integrated with the Microsoft Word application, Adobe Premiere Pro, and again, ChatGPT. So here is a demo of the Cider AI Chrome extension that you can download and use through your Google Chrome browser. So it is a tool for generating text from an image file. So this is helpful for transcribing and providing descriptions for digital collection and improving their searchability. So let us see how it works. So you can upload an image from your computer, an image that contains uh, words. So there you can see this image of a note that is handwritten. So let's see if it can decipher a specific message. So it's not about waiting for that one moment first. Seems accurate. So the person start and hold a chance that something great will happen on it. It's pretty accurate. So you can simply copy this text that was generated by the app and input it to the system that you use for recording your metadata. And other labor-intensive tasks that librarians make are related to data collection and analysis for decision making. So instead of having to make do with analyzing data in spreadsheets and documents, AI tools can be used to analyze data and come up with predictions based on the resulting patterns or trends. Specifically, AI can be used to analyze data on circulation, library usage patterns, resource needs, feedback, and engagement metrics. So we also have an example for this. Examples of AI tools that can do this kind of predictive analytics are IBM Watson, Microsoft Azure AI, and ChatGPT again. So here's a quick demo on the use of ChatGPT for analysis of text. So here we upload a file, a spreadsheet containing statistics about our library. So we have the prompt using the CSV file, analyze the visitorship data to predict trends and propose solutions on how to increase visitorship. So look at the content of the file, has provided analysis, steps, even came up with graphs, the seasonal peaks and troughs. So here are some suggestions based on the data that we provided ChatGPT. So it says target low visitation month, implement special events, promotions, or discounts during the months with low visitorship to attract visitors, focus on popular categories, enhance the offerings and marketing for categories that already have higher visitorship to maximize your potential, and have demographic specific strategy. Tailor programs and promotions to appeal to specific demographic groups that show strong or weak attendance. So there, makes sense actually. So this is very useful as a starting point. Next, we go to the area of user management, wherein we can use AI for user interaction and support and resource discovery recommendations. Commonly used are chatbots and library websites. AI in libraries could be used also to curate and recommend relevant digital resources, such as ebooks or such as ebooks to users. AI can also be used to improve the user experience of cloud-hosted library solutions by suggesting more relevant search terms and displaying more useful content. So in most libraries, we can go to a help desk or counter that is manned by librarians who are ready to help and answer any queries that its patron may raise. The introduction of email and the smartphone empowered librarians to provide support even to its users located outside the library's premises. And with the advent of AI, this kind of support has been extended 24/7 with the help of chatbots and virtual assistants who can field queries all day long and guide users to the resources that they need. So examples of these are chatbots like those developed using IBM Watson or Microsoft Azure Bot Service, or even bots supported by social media platforms. So again, here's a demo of a chatbot integrated to the website of Lehman College Library for user interaction. So let us see how it works. So they developed a chatbot that's integrated to their website. So it's a welcome message. Once you open you click on bot, and it automatically generates responses for frequently asked questions. These tools are actually available also on different social media sites like Facebook and Instagram. So you can easily use them on your institution's Facebook pages. So here's another question. So it provide able to provide basic information automatically and it's not restricted by time. So and then for resource discovery, we traditionally used card catalogs. Now online catalogs or OPAC to search for library materials. Before, library systems still require Boolean operators like and, or, and not for a more precise search. Modern library systems now allow users to type a word or phrase, then discover what is there using facets or smart filters. Examples of facets or filters are things like format, subject, location, author, and publisher. Searching is now made easier. Moreover, AI algorithms can also analyze user behavior to suggest books, articles, and resources. So some examples are similar to Netflix's recommendation system, but for library resources. So tools like Andy Search and ChatGPT can discover resources based on specific user prompts. So here's a platform called andysearch.com, this web tool. So let's try to ask Andy. So here we ask to generate a list of books written by Philippine authors describing the socioeconomic conditions of the Philippines during World War. So there are some recommended titles by Anne with an explanation. So there, we can check these recommendations uh, for, if they are really relevant. So before we recommend them to our library users. So the sources were and is able to get the information. Okay. And then another area is for remote access and online services. So we will look at expanding resource availability, enhancing user convenience, and promoting user engagement. So our library resources, such as digital collections of ebooks, e-journals, databases, digitized and born digital files, combined with the use of technology, such as website and content management system platform or CMS, will result to expanded resource availability. Digitization of collections like historical documents, local archives, photographs, or other unique library holdings, and their online accessibility broadens user reach and preserves valuable materials. Also, remote access to e-resources, wherein the use of software like EZ Proxy or Open Athens allows users to access subscribed e-journals, ebooks, and databases from anywhere with an internet connection. So this extends library services beyond the physical walls and accommodates users who cannot visit in person. This was especially useful during the COVID pandemic, wherein physical libraries were not accessible due to lockdowns. During this time, digital resources have become more popular among library users. Digital resources enable users to search and access information quickly and easily, whether they are on-site or off-site. A vast selection of digital books, articles, and other types of content made available online enables libraries to create a more comprehensive user experience beyond the physical space of the library. Next is enhancing user convenience through online portals and services such as the online catalog or OPAC that allows users to search for physical and digital resources, check availability, and place hold for pickup or download, ebook and audiobook lending, a platform for users to borrow and download ebooks and audiobooks directly to their devices, online renewals that allow users to renew borrowed materials online without visiting the library, online library memberships, and digital reference services that implement online chatbot services, email reference, or FAQ sections to answer user queries remotely. It is also important to have user-friendly and responsive interfaces for library systems that can work for mobile devices like smartphones, tablets, and laptops. So here are some examples of virtual libraries that feature various digital collections. So there's the Internet Archive or archive.org, the World Digital Library through LOC, libraryofcongress.gov, and the Happy Trust Digital Library, happytrust.org. So here in the Philippines, we have Filipiniana Online and FHL that features digital collections on Philippine history and culture with digitized rare books made available for online reading. So you can reach us at filipinaslibrary.org. Okay, we're still working on continuous improvement to enhance our online platform. And also, there is the National Libraries Collection and the Philippine eLife, and also the digital resources of various university libraries, among others. And earlier, we seen the video of Logic, and they also provide a wide variety of um, digital learning tools, resources, and services that you can also utilize to enhance your library services, especially for digital collection. So here, next is for promoting user engagement. Technology can be used for online tutorials and workshops. So we can offer online tutorials and workshops to educate users about library resources, search strategies, and digital tools. And also for social media and newsletters, you can utilize social media platforms and email newsletters to promote library services, new acquisitions, upcoming events, and online resources. And you can also come up with online book clubs and discussion forums to engage your users and create online communities where users can discuss books, share recommendations, and participate in virtual book clubs. So when creating visual content to promote your library, you can utilize AI-powered tools or platforms like Canva, the platform I actually use for this presentation. They have this magic design feature wherein you can generate images based on text prompts, like the image I mentioned in first two slides. So there are other online tools also that perform such processes. So here, for example, you just describe what you want to create, and then it will generate an image for you. Uh, it can also generate a graphic or even video. So finally, for virtual and augmented reality, or VR and AR, they offer exciting possibilities for libraries to engage users and enhance learning and offer a more interactive and immersive experience. This can be applied for virtual field trips, 3D learning environments, accessibility, interactive book overlays, information overlays, and interactive user experience. So let us differentiate uh, VR and AR. So VR creates fully immersive and computer-generated environment. So the physical world is replaced by a simulated one by a VR headset worn by the user. This simulation can be anything depending on the VR content created. So it can be another location, like a famous tourist spot, deep underwater, or even inside the body of an animal. The key characteristics of VR are fully immersive. So users live within the simulated environment in lieu of the real world. And then it makes use of head-mounted displays or HMD, um, typically accessed through HMDs that provide wide field of view and head tracking capability. Also, it has virtual environment interaction, wherein users can interact with the virtual world through controllers or head and hand tracking technology. So, on the other hand, AR augments the real world with digital elements through the use of a device like a smartphone or headset. So, users can see the real world through the device, albeit with computer generated information overlaid on top. So, think of it as like filters that we use when we take pictures using our smartphones, camera app, or messaging app. Um, this information can be text, images, 3D models, or even interactive elements. So key characteristics of AR are overlays, digital overlays of information onto the real world, adding a new facet on how users can see and appreciate reality. See-through display. AR utilizes various display technologies like smartphone cameras or specialized headsets that allow users to see both the real world and the digital overlay simultaneously. And interaction with the real world, the users primarily interact with the physical world while AR enhances it with digital information. So to help us better understand and differentiate VR and AR, let's watch this video from Ninja Robot Studio.
What's the difference in AR and VR? Augmented reality, or AR, overlays digital information and digital objects onto the real physical world, thus augmenting it. Examples of this include smartphone apps like Apple Maps AR walking directions or Tilt 5 AR glasses, where you can enhance your tabletop gaming experience with digital animation and special effects. And virtual reality, or VR, immerses you into a fully digital environment, such as this virtual tour of Anne Frank's hideout. You can walk around the space, lean over, pick up objects, peek around things, and open doors. The VR headset uses sight, sound, lighting, and vibrations on the controllers to trick your brain into thinking you're actually there. To sum it up, AR augments the real world with digital information. VR immerses you into a fully digital world. Links are in the comments to learn more. See y'all later.
So there. So one use case of VR or AR is for virtual field trip. So imagine stepping into ancient Rome or any place that you would like to travel to or explore the depths of the ocean using VR headset. So it can transport you to remote locations, historical periods, enriching research and learning. So aside from VR hardware, you also need to create the VR content. So what the user will see when using the headset to make virtual field trips a reality. So creating a VR content typically involves the following steps. So first is choosing a VR platform. So there can be a lot of VR platforms that can host your content, such as Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, PlayStation VR. And then you choose your VR development tools. So software like Unity or Unreal Engine provide the necessary environment to create interactive VR experiences. Next is to design your VR environment. So plan out your VR environment, including layout, visuals, and user interaction. And then develop your content. Using your chosen development tool, you can create your 3D models, animations, and audio for your VR experience. Next is testing and optimizing. VR content needs to be tested in order to ensure that it runs smoothly and provides an engaging experience. And lastly, you can publish your content. Once the VR content is polished, it can be published to the appropriate platform. And next use is for 3D learning environment, wherein complex scientific concepts or historical events can be visualized in 3D, allowing users to interact with models and simulations for deeper understanding. 3D learning environments refer to virtual spaces where users can interact with content and do activities in a three-dimensional setting. These environments are designed to enhance learning experiences by providing immersive and engaging interaction. Users can explore, manipulate objects, collaborate with others, and participate in simulations or exercises. So a good example of this is Google Expedition. It is a platform that allows users to do virtual or 3D tours of famous locations or spots. VR and AI, VR and AR can also serve as accessibility. VR can provide virtual tours or adaptations of physical library spaces for users with mobility limitations. As mentioned earlier, creating VR content is key when choosing how to use VR headsets. Virtual tours of physical library spaces are created by making VR content based on the library space itself. This will make the user feel like he or she is experiencing the library firsthand. We also have interactive book overlays. With AR, hovering your phone over a book will enable you to see 3D models, videos, or historical timelines come to life, enriching the reading experience. By the way, this is another AI-generated image. So interactive book overlays using augmented reality involve adding digital elements such as animations, videos, and interactive graphics to physical books through the use of AR technology. Usually, AR-enabled apps are installed in mobile devices such as smartphones and tablets that then can be used by users to interact with physical books. This allows users to engage with the content in a more immersive and interactive way. Another way of using AR is to expand its use besides adding information overlays to a physical book. AR apps can overlay information labels on physical library objects, providing contextual details about historical artifacts or artwork. So can be used to provide information and contextual details to other library holdings like maps, images, artwork, and any other physical object that is part of a library's holding. Similar to the virtual field trip and virtual tours, VR or AR games is a novel way of letting users experience the library space and access its resources. VR or AR games can guide users through the library, encouraging exploration and discovery of resources while learning new things. Instead of a straightforward tour from point A to point B of the library space, the experience is gamified with the users experiencing the library and its resources via a game and its inherent rules, which in turn leads to users having different experiences depending on how they play the game. So here are some applications of VR and AR in my organization. the Ayala Foundation, specifically the Ayala Museum. So before the pandemic, there was this Ayala Museum VR exhibit, which enabled users to experience history, specifically the execution of our national hero, Jose Rizal. So, and also during the pandemic, the museum also developed a virtual field trip program that utilized its VR exhibits and Google Maps to continue their educational programs online while we were on lockdown. Here's a quick video. And just last night, on its 50th anniversary, the museum unveiled its new AR experience in the diorama exhibition. So feel free to visit the Ayala Museum to experience this firsthand, augmented reality at the diorama exhibition. So they also produced AR activated postcards featuring the diorama collection. So before I conclude this presentation, allow me to share as well a little bit about our digitization initiative in the Philippines Heritage Library, or FHL. FHL is managed by the Ayala Foundation, Incorporated, or AFI, and together with the Ayala Museum, we form part of AFI's Arts and Culture Division. So physically, we are located inside the Ayala Museum building at the 6th floor, and the museum and the library were recently renovated. And what you see here in this photo is the new look of our library's reception area. So here's a short video walkthrough of our new library. So there, hope you can visit us soon. Um, Philippines Heritage Library, or FHL, is a digital hub that is both memory keeper and advocate of Philippine culture. So in this twofold role, it serves communities, shaping people who are creative, productive, self-reliant, and proud to be Filipino. This archive, a digitally linked knowledge center, enables Filipinos to access the insights, continually shaping our history and shared future. As a memory keeper, the library archives and probes Philippine history and our ongoing cultural legacy, safekeeping the print, audio, and visual stories of the Filipino. It nurtures creativity by embracing traditional and analog forms alongside new Filipiniana materials emerging from new media and from select currents of pop culture. As an advocate, FHL shows interest in our history and sense-making. It amps up Philippine culture's worthiness of being studied and carried over to other circuits of exchange within and beyond national borders. It clarifies what the uniquely Filipino can do for our people and for others in the world. As part of our digitalization journey, we strive to be available in various platforms, or what we call the omni-channel approach. To reach a wider audience, we are on site, online, and offsite. On-site, we perform traditional library services and library and reference services and accommodate researchers in our newly renovated space to provide a conducive environment for study, as well as provide access to our physical books and collection. We also mount physical exhibitions that utilizes our collections and allow people to learn about them in new ways. Together with the Ayala Museum, our collections in digital form can also be found in a new digital gallery made up of 8 sprawling screens that enables visitors to explore museum and library objects, especially those that are not regularly displayed on exhibits, and engage in interactive and personal conversations with art and history. To complement our physical collections and exhibitions and to activate our collections, we also conduct public educational programs such as lectures and workshops, and even concerts. We actually have our next jazz concert featuring Scarlett Brown and Fausto Tolentino next Saturday, June 20th. And to reach people beyond our walls and physical borders, which was what mainly happened during the height of the pandemic, we are making parts of our collections accessible online through our website, catalog, and digital library, where one can freely read digitized books that are mostly rare online. We also accommodate reference inquiries via email, chat, or virtual consultation. We also have online exhibitions that you can view through the Google Arts and Culture platform. And you can also find various historical and cultural tidbits and content on our social media. We also curate book lists on various topics and playlists of Philippine music from our Himi collection that you can listen to on Spotify. In relation to that, we also have our own podcast on Filipino music entitled Muni Muni Stories. We also conduct online workshops, lectures, or webinars, especially on our core collection, World War II in the Philippines. They are accessible on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. So here's a quick glimpse of our collection, focused on Filipiniana, or Philippine studies, specifically materials on Philippine history and culture, both rare or pre-1945 and contemporary. The Roderick Hall collection on World War II in the Philippines, the Retrato Photo Archive of over 35,000 rare images on Philippine life and culture, President Elpidio Quirino Papers and the Manuel L. Quezon Family Collection, and the Himi Collection of Vintage Philippine Music are some of our special and core collections in the life. And all these are managed by the lean but able team of FHL. So we are composed of 17 members under 2 collaborative teams, such as collections and programs. So under collections is myself as the head librarian with my reference librarian and digital archivist colleague, and the program team which utilizes our collections in engaging activities for better appreciation. We do not have a dedicated ICT person, but we are supported by AFI's ICT team with regards to tech support and applications and systems. They also coordinate with service providers that we need to engage, such as suppliers, maintenance support providers, uh, software providers, and digitization providers in case we need to outsource. So here's an overview of our digitization initiatives through the years. So first is the Retrato Photo Archive, which was started by FHL way back in 1998. And now we have over 35,000 digital images available in our catalog and may be used for educational purposes. Another project was the digitization of the President Elpidio Quirino Papers by a service provider way back in 2007. Our next major digitization effort was the HIMI collection digitization in 2008, wherein we converted over 1,000 vinyl records of OPM into digital format. And it was followed by the digitization of our rare books, which we made available online on our website. And the actual digitization process uh, involves the use of this V-Cradle scanner. And through a grant, we were also able to digitize Ulahingan chants from the Manobo tribe in 2015 in cooperation with Suleiman University. And recently, we again got a grant from the NCCA to digitize some films by filmmaker Hugh Gibb that are related to Philippine anthropology. So those were 16 millimeter film reels from the 70s, and we don't have in-house equipment and expertise for such material, so we sought the services of a reputable provider. And now we continue to digitize our core collection, including World War II materials, as part of our regular operations. And we also offer it as a service. So in a nutshell, here's a brief overview of the digitization process for books and print material. So it also needs preparation, especially if the material is fragile. It may need some conservation treatments to stabilize the material prior to digitization. And then scanning with the use of OCR to capture text, editing, cropping and fixing of alignments, and conversion to searchable PDF to improve information discovery. And lastly, uploading and metadata management for online access. So we also have materials aside from books and print materials. So as mentioned earlier, the Himig collection is composed of vinyl recordings, wherein the process is similar but require different equipment, software, and other procedures and tools. So to prepare, you also need to clean vinyl records with the use of special cleaning materials, um, turntable equipment, and software for editing and processing the digital audio files. So here's a quick demo of the book digitization output that is accessible to our online platform. Try to so, so you can flip the book, time release the flipping of the book typically, and then you can search for text, zoom in, so, search for specific text within the book. So there. So another use of our digital collections is in our interactive digital gallery, which is accessible at the lobby of the Ayala Museum and features 1,000 curated materials from the museum's and library's collection. So another application of AI in our library work in FHL is for automated transcription of videos in our collection. So, so this was one of the films that were recently digitized through the NCCA grant I mentioned earlier. So, due to the quality of the source material, which is already very old, so the audio is not that clear anymore. So, in order for the users to better understand the video while watching. So we had to add subtitles to improve user experience. So their experience and accessibility. So what we did was use Adobe Premiere Pro to generate transcription uh, automatically from the digital file. So here's a snapshot of that tool. So there is a transcribe feature. And here you can see the generated text with the corresponding timestamp. So this is very helpful. Um, Although of course we still had to review and edit the output of the uh, automated transcription to ensure that what we put on the video is really accurate. And we also maximize the features of our social media account, like the automations feature in Meta or Facebook. So you may be using this also in your own social media pages. So for basic and frequently asked questions, such as um, contact information, hours, location, we provide automated responses so that users can get answers anytime and immediately, even outside library hours. So here, you can see sample FAQs that can be answered anytime via AI. So you can select or input specific questions that you think are the most frequently asked and provide your answers. And this is what the users will see. So uh, you can ask where's the library located, when is it open, there are fee to visit the library, are walk allowed, there's prior appointment required, and what are the library's collections. So for Facebook pages, I think there's a limit to up to 5 uh, questions per FAQ. So can utilize and maximize that. And to conclude this session, let's go to challenges, solutions, and future direction. So adopting and developing transformative technology for library services or an organization is not easy. So there are many challenges that we have to address to achieve our goal. So to conclude this session, we'll talk about challenges, some solutions and strategies, and future trends. So for challenges, foremost among these is the perennial problem of limited funding or lack of resources. So libraries are often overlooked and are almost always at the bottom of the food chain when it comes to budget allocation. So this in turn compounds the problem of acquiring new hardware, software, recruiting skilled personnel, and training of existing staff. If your institution is lucky enough to have the necessary funding, hurdling the challenge of having non-digital personnel is the next step. So these are people who are not adept at using technology and are also almost always averse to change. So they are the ones that cling to using the existing processes or technology and believes in the saying that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, if you have both money and personnel to employ transformative technologies, the next hurdle is to convince management that employing these technologies is beneficial to your institution. As mentioned earlier, libraries are often at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to funding and support. So it is quite difficult to implement new technologies when one does not have the support of management. Lastly, if you are able to pass all aforementioned challenges, you will now encounter the problem of having privacy, security, and ethical concerns. Having digitized your resources and digitally transformed the way you work comes at a cost. Without employing the necessary cybersecurity checks and balances, you run the risk of getting hacked and having your data leaked to outsiders. So aside from this, you have to take care of using AI tools in order to ensure that they are used responsibly and ethically. So for solutions and strategies, when deploying or integrating new technologies within your organization, one way of overcoming the lack of resources is to find the appropriate technology partner. Almost all major IT companies have grants, discounts, or preferential pricing for academic and government organizations. So this can go a long way in maximizing one's resources when looking to build the most cost-effective technology solution for an organization. Training and upskilling programs is another way of dealing with challenges related to the deployment of new technology. Having skilled personnel can result to ease of adoption and more efficient use of the new technologies. Lastly, developing a digital mindset is crucial for individuals and organizations to stay relevant and competitive in today's rapidly evolving digital landscape. Developing a digital mindset is a continuous journey, not a destination. It involves a comprehensive approach that includes fostering a culture of continuous learning, innovation, and agility, as well as embracing data-driven decision-making and customer-centric strategy. By cultivating these key aspects, individuals and organizations can unlock the full potential of technology to fuel growth and achieve success. And finally, for future trends, the future of libraries is poised to be significantly influenced by several key technological trends. These trends include the continued adoption of artificial intelligence, or AI, the growth of digital and virtual libraries, the integration of Internet of Things or IoT devices, advancement in VR and AR technology, blockchain for securing digital collections, evolving user interfaces and interaction, and the ongoing emphasis on data privacy and cybersecurity. With the continued advancement in technology, libraries have to embrace the use of innovative tools in order to evolve while staying true to the heart of what they offer. So that actually ends my presentation. So let me again ask you a question right now. So Now, what kind of transformative technology do you plan to use or are already starting to use in your library? So let's have our Mentimeter slide again. So let's see your answers to this question. So among the transformative technologies that we tackled today, what do you think are the ones that you want to use? So you can go to menti.com and enter the code 58844152, or just simply type them in the chat box. ChatGPT. So I think it's one of the platforms that very easy to use and good starting point. Virtual reference service. Online portal. That's very important and a necessity at this day and age that we have to be available online to our library users. Digital gallery is nice. Thank you. None yet. So yeah, you also have to be uh, careful and to study the available tools because it involves a lot of resources, funding. So you have to really plan it also when you are embarking on a big digitalization effort. So when after digitization, Canva or Google Site. Yeah. So um, yeah, most prominent is the virtual reference service, which I think is being implemented in many libraries already. Microsoft cloud-based system. So there. Thank you for your interaction. So are there any more responses? So mainly virtual reference service, ChatGPT, Canva, which is very easy to use, um, and also free for the main features, Google Sites, OPAC, cloud-based system. Okay, so thank you very much. So I hope you learned something valuable from this session, and I hope to be able to answer your questions. So just type them in the Q&A box, and looking forward to more technological enhancements in Philippine libraries to make our libraries more relevant and engaging for our library. So you can go to our website, fhlfilipinoslibrary.org.ph, to explore sources on Filipiniana. Or if you have any questions, you may type them here or have Q&A session later. So thank you very much. And
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you so much po, Miss Cecil Aiza. Now, let me just reshare my screen for us to officially open the floor for question and answer. All right. So once again, Miss Cecil, thank you for that informative and very interesting discussion po about transformative technologies enhancing library services in the digital age. So dear participants, we are now officially opening the virtual floor for Q&A. So do you have any questions po for our speaker or any clarification regarding the topic that have been discussed? And you can park your questions po in our chat box and in our Q&A box. Ayan. So we have question here, Miss Cecil, on our Q&A box from Miss C. Rosario. What are the ethical implications of AIs in our libraries, particularly regarding the privacy and information bias? Thank you.
yes, so among the ethical implications of AI in libraries, particularly regarding privacy, is that when we generate information from AI that uses machine learning systems, for example, generative AI like ChatGPT, so there may be information, they can generate information that are private or not really meant for the public. So we should be conscious of that when we are able to generate those kinds of data, we screen them also. So we still have to evaluate the type of information generated, whether there are parts that should not be publicly available. So we should also be uh, aware and up to date about data privacy concerns, especially now that data privacy is a big uh, part of uh, our digital society. So we should always be updated about data privacy concerns and what are the implications that ever we share personal data, or we should know how to protect personal data so that we don't um, contribute to data breach. Recently, we see some incidents of data breaches in some organizations that are or big organizations. So we also have to invest and train our people about cybersecurity to avoid that kind of uh, incidents or to better protect uh, data. And also uh, AI tools like ChatGPT, yes, has information bias because um, the data they the data that they come up with depends on the uh, data that were fed to them during the training process. So if those data are biased towards a certain um, race or um, are biased towards different topics or subject matter, uh, that's the same information that we will be getting from AI. So you should be conscious of that also and not entirely um, rely on what the AI generates for us. So I hope I was able to answer that.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Miss Cecil. There's another question here on our chat box from the participant, Livon Mateo. So, how can libraries effectively balance the integration of transformative technologies with maintaining traditional aspects of library services to ensure they meet the diverse needs of all patrons?
Yes, I think we should still uh, review or study carefully and evaluate the, our library users. So um, let's really look at how um, they use our services or the demographics, the types of library users that we serve, because the transformative technologies that we can apply will really depend on the needs of the specific types of library users that we have. So, um, so of course, traditional library services are here to stay, but we use transformative technologies to enhance those existing traditional library services and just maximize those tools to be able to improve how we deliver such traditional library services. And yeah, we have to uh, study the kind of library users that we cater to and their different needs to be able to look at the different kinds of available technologies that we can use to address those diverse needs.